At its core, business is really all about promises. But what happens when one of those promises gets broken? When a deal just completely falls apart, it's more than just disappointing. It costs real, actual money. So the big question is, how much? Well, today we're going to dive into how the legal system comes up with a surprisingly logical answer. So let's just ask it straight up. What is a broken promise actually worth? Is it the money you lost out on? Is it the opportunity that vanished into thin air? To really get how courts tackle this, we're going to follow a story. All right, so I want you to meet Chloe. She is a fantastic hater, and she has just landed the biggest, most important event of her entire career. The contract she has with the company, Oven Corp, is super simple. They deliver a specific, high-end commercial oven by Tuesday. But the day comes, and the wrong oven shows up. It's a total breach of contract, and Chloe's biggest night is suddenly hanging by a thread. Now, to figure out Chloe's problem, courts don't just pull a number out of a hat. No, they follow a really clear and logical roadmap. First, we'll see exactly how the promise was broken. Then, we're going to walk through the court's essential three-part checklist. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together in the end. So, here's our showdown. On one side, you've got caterer Chloe, whose entire event and her reputation is riding on having the right gear. And on the other side, Oven Corp, the company that broke its promise. That one failure forces Chloe to scramble, and it costs her cold, hard cash. So now a court has to step in and try to make things right. But this is where it gets really methodical. See, the court doesn't just guess. It follows this incredibly structured three-part test. And it's so important to remember. This isn't about punishment. It's about finding a number that's fair and logical. You can think of it like a checklist for getting things back in balance. And here is that very checklist. The court asks three key questions. First, causation. Did the breach actually cause the loss? Second, recognized loss. Is this even the kind of loss the law will compensate for? And finally, remoteness. Was the damage something you could have reasonably seen coming? Okay, let's break down that first pillar, causation. All right, our first pillar is causation. And let me tell you, this is the foundation of the entire argument. The court has to see a direct link, a clear, straight line connecting that broken promise to the financial damage. Essentially, Chloe has to prove that A led directly to B. It's kind of like a chain of dominoes. The court needs to see that Oven Corp's breach was the first domino to fall, the thing that set off the chain reaction that led straight to her financial loss. Without that clear connection, the whole case just falls apart. Now for Chloe, this part is pretty much a slam dunk. Because the wrong oven showed up, she had to rent another one at the last minute, which cost money, and she couldn't make her most profitable dishes. The key thing here is that there is a clear, unbroken chain linking Oven Corp's failure to Chloe's lost profit. And just like that, she's cleared the first hurdle. Okay, next step, the court moves to the second pillar, recognized loss. Now, just because you suffered some kind of harm, that doesn't automatically mean a court's going to write you a check for it. Contract law is actually very specific about what counts. You see, the law mostly focuses on tangible economic losses. In the world of business contracts, the court's job is to fill a financial hole, not to compensate for how frustrated or stressed out you are. The law draws a very, very firm line right here. And this slide lays out that difference perfectly. You can see the court will recognize things like lost profits or the cost of renting that replacement oven. But her stress, her frustration, her emotional distress, those feelings are very real, but they typically fall outside of what contract law covers. So Chloe's claim for lost profits, it fits squarely in that recognized category, and that's the second hurdle cleared. We've now arrived at the third and final pillar, remoteness, and this one is often the most debated part of the entire test. It all comes down to foreseeability. Was the damage a predictable consequence of breaking the promise? The principle is actually pretty simple. You're not liable for every single unpredictable ripple effect that comes from your mistake. The damage has to be something that both parties, when they were signing the contract, would have thought was a likely result if things went wrong. It just can't be something that came totally out of left field. This slide makes the distinction crystal clear. On the left, you see the direct loss. That's like the splash from a rock thrown in a pond. Of course, Oven Corp should know that if a caterer's oven doesn't work, she's going to lose money from that event. That is not remote. But the stuff on the right, that's what we call too remote. Let's say a food critic at the event gave a bad review, and a month later, Chloe misses out on a TV show offer because of it. Well, that's likely too remote, an unpredictable ripple that nobody could have seen coming when they signed the contract. So, we've walked through the court's entire checklist. We have our three pillars: causation, recognized loss, and remoteness. Now, let's put it all together and see how they lead to a final verdict for Chloe. Looking at this table, it all just snaps right into focus. Did the breach cause the loss? Yes, absolutely. Was it a type of loss the law covers? Yes, lost profit is a textbook example. And finally, was the loss foreseeable? You bet. A supplier knows that a faulty oven is going to hurt a caterer's business. As you can see, Chloe's claim for lost profits clears all three hurdles with flying colors. And this brings us to the biggest takeaway of all. The court's goal here isn't to punish OvenCorp, it's to restore Chloe. The whole point of this logical three-pillar framework is to put her back in the financial position she would have been in if the promise had been kept. It's all about making the business world fair and, maybe most importantly, predictable. So, we've seen that the law has this powerful and really logical checklist for putting a price on a broken promise. But this leaves us with one final, bigger question. When trust is completely shattered and a huge opportunity just vanishes, can a dollar amount ever truly restore what was lost?